What would you do if a cop suddenly blasted a flashlight through your window and started scanning every inch of your car? That moment can turn a simple stop into a full search fast. And if you make one nervous move, you can hand them exactly what they want. Before I reveal the exact words, hit subscribe so you can find this video again when you're pulled over at night. Smash like too, because what you learn here could save you from a search you never meant to allow. When that light hits your dashboard, your seat, your back floor, and your cup holders, your brain starts racing. You feel exposed. You feel judged. You feel like they already found something even when there is nothing there. That pressure makes people talk too much, move too fast, and agree to things they never planned to agree to. Let me show you exactly what matters in that moment. First, how to stop your own body from making you look dangerous. Second, the one sentence that blocks a quick look request. Third, the question that stops a traffic stop from getting stretched into a fishing trip. And fourth, the exact line you use if the flashlight turns into nonstop questioning. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the pattern is always the same. The officer uses the light to create pressure. The driver tries to seem helpful. Then the driver gives up space, words, or consent. Most people have no idea the flashlight itself is often not the real problem. The real problem is what you do right after it. Here's the reality. The second you start reaching, explaining, laughing nervously, or saying go ahead just to seem calm, you make the stop easier for them and harder for you. You think you're lowering tension. A lot of times you're doing the opposite. Your job is not to win the officer over. Your job is to stay safe, stay calm, and stop giving away control. At night, a flashlight feels powerful because it turns your whole car into a stage. Every snack bag looks suspicious. Every hoodie looks weird. Every tool looks like a weapon. That means you need a plan before the questions start. If you wait until you feel scared, you will say the wrong thing. If you memorize the right lines now, you can keep the stop from sliding somewhere much worse. The first thing you do when that light comes in your car is stop moving and make the officer direct every movement. This sounds simple, but it saves people. The flashlight creates panic because you feel watched from every angle. Your first instinct is to grab your wallet faster, move stuff off the seat, point at random items, or reach into a dark pocket to explain what they're seeing. Don't do that. That is exactly how a simple stop turns tense. Here's exactly what you say. My hands are visible. Please tell me where you want me to move. Word for word. Memorize that line. If your registration is in the glove box, say, my registration is in the glove box. May I reach for it now? If your wallet is in your back pocket, say, my wallet is in my back pocket. May I get it now? Short, clear, slow. Why does this work? Because it takes away surprise. The flashlight is being used to study your movements. If you control your movements with your words, you lower the chance that your actions get twisted into furtive behavior. That just means sudden movements that police later describe as suspicious. You do not want your normal reaching to become their story about danger. Bad way. Most drivers say, hold on, it's right here, and start digging around. Then the officer gets jumpy, starts barking orders, and the whole stop gets more aggressive. Good way. Smart drivers say, my hands are visible. Please tell me where you want me to move. Then the officer knows exactly what you're doing, and you stop the panic before it grows. This matters even more if you are ordered out of the car. Pennsylvania versus Mimms is important here. In plain English, the Supreme Court said police can usually order a driver out of a lawfully stopped car. That means if the officer says step out, you step out. You do not argue on the roadside, but stepping out does not mean you start chatting, reaching, or giving explanations. It means you comply with the movement order and nothing more. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it shows you were trying to stay safe and clear, not sneaky. Former police officers have confirmed this works because calm narration removes the fear that comes from sudden motion. And when fear drops, your risk of getting dragged into a bigger mess often drops too. The flashlight is there to make you feel exposed. Your answer is to become slow, boring, and predictable. That is how you keep the first 30 seconds from exploding. Think you could stay this calm during a real stop? Let me know in the comments because most drivers lose control right here before the real pressure even starts. The second tactic is the one that protects your car when the flashlight scan turns into a search request. This is the big one. The officer shines the light around, pauses on a bag, a jacket, a locked box, or something on the back seat, then says something that sounds casual. You don't mind if I check that, right? Or, mind if I take a quick look? Or, if there's nothing wrong, this will only take a second. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. The request is meant to sound friendly because friendly gets consent faster than force. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Word for word. Memorize that line, then stop. Do not soften it with, but I swear there's nothing in there. Do not joke. Do not ramble. Just give the line. This is 100% legal. You are allowed to refuse consent. You are not resisting. You are not attacking the officer. You are not hiding anything by using your rights. You are simply refusing permission. Bad way. Most drivers say, I guess that's fine. Then the officer treats that one sentence like an open door to your whole car. Good way. Smart drivers say, officer, I do not consent to any searches. Then the officer has to find some other lawful reason instead of using your own words against you. Watch what happens when you say it cleanly. The mood changes. The officer now knows you understand what is happening. A lot of people think refusing a search makes them look guilty. No. What hurts you is unclear speech. Nervous half-yes answers become full yes answers later when the report gets written. Your calm refusal is far stronger than a shaky explanation. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In Schneckloth versus Bustamonte, the court said consent can count as voluntary even if police never told the person they had the right to refuse. In plain English, they do not have to educate you before asking. That is why your own line matters so much. In Ohio versus Robinette, the court said police do not have to tell you that you are free to go before asking for consent to search. In plain English, the stop can sound relaxed and still be a setup for consent. So do not wait for some magic phrase from the officer. Protect yourself with your own phrase. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection because it shuts down the easiest path into your car. The flashlight scan is often just the setup. Consent is the real prize. If you give it away, the fight gets much harder later. If you refuse it clearly, you keep your ground. Let me show you exactly why this works so well. It forces the stop back onto law instead of feelings. No officer can honestly say you invited the search if you clearly refused it on camera. Still watching? Good. Drop a like if this is already changing how you'd handle a night stop, because the next move cops make after you refuse is where a lot of drivers crack. The third tactic is how you stop the stop from stretching after the flashlight scan gives them new curiosity. This part is dangerous because it feels so small. Maybe the officer already checked your license. Maybe the warning is basically done. Then the questions keep coming. Where are you headed? Who owns the bag? Why are you nervous? Hang on one more second. That extra minute matters more than you think. You look at the officer and say this. Am I being detained or am I free to leave? Those exact words. Keep your tone flat. Not angry, not sarcastic, just direct. Why does this work? Because it forces the legal moment into the open. The stop either has a reason to continue or it does not. If the officer says you are free to leave, leave calmly. If the officer says you are being detained, then you know the stop has officially moved into something else. Either way, you stop drifting in that gray zone where people talk too much. Bad way. Most drivers say, sure, what else do you need? Then the officer gets more time, more answers, and more chances to build suspicion from nothing. Good way. Smart drivers say, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Then the officer has to either end the stop or clearly claim a reason to keep it going. This is 100% legal. You are allowed to ask whether you are free to leave. You are not being disrespectful. You are asking for the status of the stop. That one question can save you from 10 more minutes of fishing. Rodriguez versus United States is the key case here. In plain English, the Supreme Court said police cannot extend a traffic stop longer than needed just to do extra investigation unless they have real additional suspicion. That means once the mission of the stop is done, they cannot keep you there just because they want to keep poking around. Here's the reality. A lot of drivers lose because they never mark that moment. They stay in conversation mode. They answer one more question, then one more, then the officer says something in those answers gave him concern. Watch what happens when you ask the right question at the right time. The whole stop gets sharper. The officer either releases you or has to make his position plain. That clarity protects you. It also protects your memory later because you know exactly when the stop changed. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and this is the turning point people miss over and over again. They think being patient will help. Sometimes patience just gives the officer more rope to work with. If you've made it this far, you're serious about protecting your rights. Show me by hitting that like button, because the next tactic is the one that saves you when the flashlight stop turns into nonstop questioning. The fourth tactic is what you do when the officer starts trying to talk you into your own problem. Maybe the light caught a bottle cap, a cash roll, a bag, medicine, tools, or nothing at all. But now the questions come fast. Whose stuff is that? When did you last smoke? Why are you shaking? Do you mind explaining this? This is where people talk because silence feels awkward. Listen closely because this is critical. If you want to stop the questioning the right way, you need to use clear words. Silence by itself is not always enough. Here's exactly what you say. I am invoking my right to remain silent and I want a lawyer. Word for word, then say nothing else about the facts. Not one extra explanation, not one defensive joke, not one angry speech. Why is that so important? Because of Berghuis versus Thompkins. In plain English, the Supreme Court said that just sitting there quietly was not enough to clearly use the right to remain silent. The suspect later answered a question, and that answer counted against him. So if you want protection, say it plainly. Bad way. Most drivers say, "I don't know if I should talk." Then the officer keeps pressing, and the driver ends up filling the silence with damaging words. Good way. Smart drivers say, "I am invoking my right to remain silent, and I want a lawyer." Then the line is clear and the record is much cleaner. This matters because the flashlight is often just the opener. The real goal is admissions. They want you to explain the smell, the bag, the friend, the route, the cash, the stop before this one, the reason you're nervous or why your story changed. Once you start explaining, you almost never explain less. You explain more, then you correct yourself, then you try to sound more believable. That spiral is where people sink. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it leaves very little room for confusion. Former police officers have confirmed this works because once you stop feeding the conversation, the officer loses one of the easiest ways to dig deeper. You do not beat pressure by sounding smarter. You beat it by becoming disciplined. Now let's pull the law together in simple English so you know why these tactics fit. Schneckloth versus Bustamonte tells you something huge. Police do not have to tell you that you can refuse a search before asking for consent. So if you wait for a warning, you may wait forever. That is why your refusal has to come from you. Ohio versus Robinette tells you police do not have to say you are free to go before they ask for consent. So a calm voice or a casual tone means nothing by itself. Rodriguez versus United States tells you a traffic stop cannot be stretched longer than needed just to keep investigating unless police have a real reason. That is why your question about being detained matters so much. Berghuis versus Thompkins tells you silence alone may not protect you if you never clearly invoke your rights. That is why you use the lawyer line out loud. Pennsylvania versus Mimms tells you police can usually order you out of a lawfully stopped car. So you comply with movement orders, but you do not turn that into open-ended cooperation. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings, and together they explain the whole game. The light creates pressure. Your words decide whether that pressure stays small or turns into a bigger problem. Now picture the full stop. It's late. You're driving home. Red and blue lights hit your mirror. You pull over. The officer walks up and shines a bright flashlight across your face, then your passenger seat, then the back floor. Wrong way first. You start grabbing for your wallet before saying anything. He stiffens. You laugh nervously and say, sorry, it's just in here somewhere." The light pauses on a gym bag. He asks what's in it. You start explaining your whole day. Then he says, "You don't mind if I check it, right?" You say, I don't care." That is the break he wanted. Now the bag opens. More questions come. He returns your license, but keeps talking. You stay. He asks about the cash in the console. You answer. 10 minutes later, the stop is nowhere near simple. Now the right way. Same lights, same road, same flashlight. You put your hands where he can see them and say, "My hands are visible. Please tell me where you want me to move." He asks for your documents. You narrate each movement. The light hits the gym bag. He asks what's inside. You do not start a long story. If he asks to search, you say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." He presses again. You repeat it. He finishes the warning but tries to keep you there with one more question. You say, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" If he says you're detained and the questions turn personal, you say, "I am invoking my right to remain silent and I want a lawyer." Then you stop. Stop. Same flashlight, totally different outcome. Let me show you exactly what changed. You did not fight. You did not run. You did not argue law on the roadside. You simply controlled movement, refused consent, marked the end of the stop, and stopped feeding questions. Next week, I'm revealing what to say when cops ask you to step out and leave your phone unlocked. Subscribe right now because that one mistake gives away way more than your car ever could. So remember the 4 moves. First, when the light hits your car, slow down your hands and narrate every reach. Second, if the flashlight scan turns into a search request, say you do not consent. Third, if the stop keeps dragging after the ticket business is done, ask if you are detained or free to leave. Fourth, if the questions keep coming, clearly invoke silence and ask for a lawyer. You do not need a speech, you need a system, and now you have one. Hit subscribe so you catch the next video before that phone search mistake catches you off guard. Smash that like button if this just gave you words you can actually use under pressure. And drop a comment telling me which line you'd use first if that flashlight hit your car tonight. Stay safe out there.